Hello, my name is Carolyn Morey, and I am a student at Salve Regina University. I'm going to be talking about a skeleton known as the Kennewick Man. He was found in Kennewick, Washington, hence the name Kennewick Man. Known to be one of the earliest skeletons found in the United States, Native Americans refer to him as the Ancient One. This find brings up many questions about who should have the rights to these early remains. I'm going to start with an overview of how the Kennewick Man was found, and then I will discuss the debates that his recovery stimulated.
As stated in St. Louis' Coleman's article, college students were wading across the Columbia River to sneak into the annual boat races. One lad stumbled across what turned out to be a tombstone. They returned it to the surface, and anthropologist James Chatters was asked to investigate.
Chatters first started by trying to date the remains. One way of dating is by looking at the stratigraphy of the site. This is done by looking at the depth of the artifact, its soil layer, and the other artifacts in that soil layer. Unfortunately, stratigraphy was complicated because the bones had been displaced and washed ashore. The fluvial sediment moved by water, makes it hard to tell where in the ground the remains are from. In order to find the stratigraphic layers of the bones, Chatters dug a test pit to test the stratigraphic layers of the site. He compared the minerals found on the bones to the ones found on the site, and the minerals were a match with Unit 2 on the graph. This would place Kennewick Man 11,200 and 6,850 BP. Another really good way of dating a find is radiocarbon dating. Radiocarbon dating relies on the fact that an organism collects carbon throughout its life. When it dies, that carbon slowly decreases, and the date is collected by seeing how much carbon is left. The radiocarbon date returned for Kennewick Man as 8,370 BP plus or minus 60 years. This is consistent with the stratigraphic date, and it is understood that Kennewick Man is around 9,000 years old. The circumstances surrounding Kennewick Man's death are largely unknown. No one knows whether he was buried because no grave goods were found at the site, but he could have washed away from his grave. The most compelling hypothesis to why Kennewick Man died is septicemia. This is a secondary infection caused by having an infected wound. Kennewick Man had a projectile point lodged in his hip, blunt force trauma to his chest, as well as many other injuries. These injuries were healed over and infected, which could have led to septicemia. Soon after Kennewick Man was discovered, Native American tribes requested he be respectfully reburied, as they believed continuing to study his remains would be desecrating his grave. This led to a lawsuit by several anthropologists who believed that studying the remains was very important to understanding early American history. Questions were raised regarding Kennewick Man's ancestry because if he were to be Native American, he would have to be reburied. Initial cranial measurements of Kennewick Man showed that he looked to be Caucasian. This led to some people believing that perhaps the earliest Americans could have been Caucasian. However, proof of descendancy and skull shapes can vary widely within a population. This article from Nature says that Kennewick Man's DNA patterns are closer to modern Native Americans than any other population worldwide. Most interesting from their DNA analysis is that Kennewick Man is more closely linked to southern Native American tribes than northern ones. The leading idea for this is that people traveled to the Americas, they traveled in and went south, and that perhaps Kennewick Man died along the way since he is an extremely early American, although there is no concrete proof for this idea and it is largely speculation. Kennewick Man was returned to a local Native American tribe, and no further study was done on his bone. This is complicated because studying Kennewick Man could have been very useful for understanding early American history, but Native Americans have been so mistreated they don't deserve to have their graves destroyed too. The law called NAGPRA that gives Native Americans the right to their historical remains was intended to help right a grievous wrong and return to Native Americans the remains of known relatives and recent ancestors housed in museums and universities, according to Virginia Morrell. The question is whether this should apply to cases like the one of Kennewick Man. Native Americans have been greatly wronged, and there is no way of fully making up for that. but I believe it is important that we study Native American past because we don't want to wrong them again by losing their history. Therefore, I understand both sides of the Kennewick Man case. I think it is unfortunate that we don't get to learn from his remains because it could have given us greater insight into not only early man, but Native Americans as we know it.